Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
This way, it just takes a little more intention, and it takes a little more thought. It works, and I believe it is the competitive advantage that will separate you from all the other brands that are out there, is taking this different approach.
And it helps you. It helps you with retention.
Sure.
Right. And your people will go to the wall for you because you went to the wall for them. And by the way, we have a guest that's been on our podcast that's a retired Green Beret, Army Green Beret. And what Army Green Berets do is they drop in behind enemy lines and they work with the indigenous people, the people that live behind enemy lines. And they work with them and teach them, they help them improve their lives. They win them over and they teach them how to fight. Okay. And Scott Mann is the person I'm talking about. And Scott has this phrase, this thing that he teaches called connect like your life depended on it. That's what they do. When they drop into an enemy behind enemy lines, they only have a few minutes or they're dead.
Yeah.
Have to connect, right? It's not okay. And one of the things that he and I talk about a lot, and he's coming back on the podcast again, we were meeting with him last night, the whole thing, is it's about showing up. It's about what you communicate by what you do.
That's right.
So example, right? You mentioned the boss that's always canceling meetings and always, right? What if a boss didn't cancel a meeting? What if a boss showed up early for the meeting? Right? All the other bosses out there show up late and they cancel meetings and all this other stuff, right? And you're supposed to just roll with the punches because they're so high up.
That's it.
What if you showed up 5 minutes early and that employee walks into the room and you're already there?
Right.
And
turn your phone off.
Am I late?
Don't be checking it. Yeah.
Am I late? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just giving people your undivided attention and not acting like they are an inconvenience on your calendar.
Yeah. And what happens is they'll look at you and they'll go, okay, you were here before I got here? Well, yeah. That's how much you mean to us.
And you're signaling to people that they matter and that you're there to listen to them. And, a lot of times, a lot of people cancel the one-on-ones that you have with your folks because you think, well, that can wait.
Yeah.
But for them, those one-on-one meetings might be the day that they needed to tell you about something that's going on in their life. It might be the day that they've had a really bad interaction with somebody in another department and it's about to derail a project, and they really were relying on that conversation with you to help them through that. And when you cancel it, it tells them that their work doesn't really matter, and their life doesn't really matter. You have more important things to do.
It's a test.
It is. And I just
testing you.
You've got to be there. You got to show up. And I know things come up. I mean, obviously I had things come up, but if that happens, I tell leaders, if that happens, don't wait to reschedule it immediately, and do it where they're not waiting till a week from the day you've just canceled. Right. It's just, those are some little things that leaders can do to better communicate. And there's a lot of things that leaders can think about on a smaller scale. Like, I had an employee once that I took on the department. This employee was going to be working for me. I had heard some things about this person that wasn't that great. And I had experienced some things about this person that weren't that great. Everyone had been telling me about it for the entire time I had been there, but no one had told her. And so one of the first things I realized is that I need to talk to her. She's unaware. It's a blind spot. She doesn't understand that this is all going around her, but she's nobody telling her directly. And I think that's a mistake a lot of people make in companies. They talk all around the person that's the problem versus talking to the person that's the problem. And when I did, I, in the nicest way possible, I talked to her about what was being said and how we could work on that together. And here's some things we could do. And I wanted to kind of remedy this because I wanted to see her advance in the company, but I knew it was going to hold her back. First of all, she broke down in the meeting, not because of what I was that I was hurting her feelings, but because she was frustrated that all its time no one had ever told her this. At the time when we spoke, she was a coordinator level, and by the time I left, she was a director, right? So she elevated herself over time because people began to see her differently. And I think that's another thing leaders have to remember. Those tough conversations that you may not want to have can be the difference. You make a difference in their career trajectory by just being brave enough to have those tough conversations. Instead of saying, well, I just got to let them go, right? Sometimes you got to give them the opportunity to correct the course that they're on. So yeah, that was, leaders have a lot of influence, and people really do hopefully look up to those leaders, and they want to be able to rely on you. They want to be able to trust you. They want to be able to talk to you about anything, and know that you're going to have their back. And I think that's honestly the first and biggest step in leadership is you've got to build connection with people. And you do that by showing up consistently. And you do that by being transparent. And you do that by being a little vulnerable sometimes and telling them some stories about the times you failed. And those are the things that connect people. And those are the things that drive performance in my mind. And I know everyone out there might be going, yeah, that's true. I agree with that 100%. But it's time. They have to create a system and a process that makes sure they make the time for those people that matter the most. And that's their team. Their team has got to be able to do their job. And it's your job as a leader to make sure you're telling them.
A very wise man once said that 85% of success is just showing up. Exactly. I would submit to you it's 100%.
Yeah.
It's 100%.
Really, I mean, people need you to be there when they need you to be there, know. And I've had leaders that have done that for me in my life. I went through some tough stuff, and they were there, and I will never forget it.
And you were with Whataburger for 32 years?
No, I was with Whataburger for 20.
20.
Yeah. Before that, I was a teacher for a little while, and I also worked for nonprofit, and then I was recruited by Whataburger. And started there as a marketing manager and ended up as their senior VP and really head of HR, culture, and communication. But during that 20 years, life happens, and I think that's what I saw, not just for me and how they supported me, but I saw them do it time and time again for others inside the organization. And they didn't have to, right? They're running a big, busy company and that's expanding and growing and doing all the things, but they always took the time to care about the individual, and that care about individuals really changed the service that customers experienced and improved it. It improved the way employees performed, and it's such a simple thing to do, to care about people. But when you do that, it really makes a difference in the way people show up for you. You got to show up for them.
Mind if I acknowledge something about you?
Sure.
So one of my favorite things that I've ever heard you say is it's okay to let it go.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Right? It's okay to give your employees space. It's okay to let it go a little bit. You have these exacting standards. You have these KPIs, right? You have all these things going on, right? For people that don't know, KPIs are key performance indicators, right? But you literally have sort of this, exacting standard, and it's okay to have a standard that's higher than everybody else's. It's just, it's okay to give them some room. It's okay to let it go a little bit.
Yeah, to be human in all of this. And I told a story you may have seen on my Instagram recently, and it was years ago. I was going through a divorce, and it was hard. I mean, we had just moved the family up to San Antonio area because that's where we had just relocated our headquarters. So my kids were they hadn't even started the new schools yet. We were building a house. Things were kind of, busy, crazy. And I was leading communication for this move. And so I had a lot on my plate. And we're trying to juggle like a new home and a new city we're living in. And then all of a sudden, and it was sudden, that I was getting a divorce. And so when that happened, I was trying to kind of get through it, gut it up, get through it, do what you've got to do, Pam. You've got to get your kids in school. You need to get them settled. You've got to get this big house that you're building that you thought was for 4 and is now for 3 done. And you've got to lead this effort at work. And so I was juggling, right? And like I mentioned earlier, I have a great family, and it's funny. We always joke, like my family, we're going to help you whether you want it or not. And so I had everybody on there, right, helping me, trying to support me through all of this. But I still had work, and because I cared a lot about my job and I cared a lot about the brand, and I had a great relationship with the CEO and also past COO that I had worked for at different times. I knew that I could go and say to them, "Hey, embarrassing situation, but I need to tell you about what's going on in my life. I know you just promoted me to this level director position, and I know I'm running all of these things, but hey, I just found out that I am going to be getting a divorce, and so because of that, I may need to leave early a couple of days. I may need to take some phone calls. I may not be as on my game right now, but I'm going to do my best." And I was all worried about that and how that was going to look. And then the thing is that my boss looked at me and he goes, "How can I help?" And that was it. He didn't say, "Well, you've got that deadline that we really need to get to. When would I get that on, from you?" Or, "I'm a little concerned about that. So maybe I need to give that role to somebody else right now until you're good." I didn't see them marginalize me. I didn't see them do that. All he said was, "How can I help?" And that is, to me, the way a leader should lead, right? When you are in those circumstances, number one, nobody wants to come and mess up to something as embarrassing or disappointing in their life as a divorce, or in my mind, it was a failure. But because I had that relationship with him, I could. And he was very gracious. And his words of "How can I help?" told me that he was going to help me through that. I wasn't asking him to come babysit my children. I wasn't asking him to cut me real slack. I just needed him to know and understand, so that when on those days I did have to take off to do something, he wasn't going to give me a lot of grief. And sure enough, I ended up staying there another 12 years after that happened. I ended up being a single mom for another 12 years after that. And he was just a rock. I mean, he was great. And like I mentioned, at that point I was a director. I ended up as a senior vice president. So if it did affect my career, I didn't know it. Right. They were just supportive, and and it wasn't just him, it was the entire culture. That's how we did. We kind of surrounded people and stood up those folks that were struggling through things. And I just think that is huge. And it doesn't make you lazy. It makes you very loyal. And I valued that, and I really appreciated that in his leadership. And in another person's leadership that I worked for, his name was Leonard, just just a great guy. And so, yeah, I think that we got to remember that while people want to be these high performers at work, they also want to be, those are the same people that want to be high performers at home.
Yeah.
And if you don't give them the ability to do both, then they will eventually leave.
Yeah.
And you're losing a high performer. And had I really ran into a wall there and they would have really taken some weird, hard stance against me, I would have left.
Mm-hmm.
Because my priority were my kids at that point. And that was, I was non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Like I had to take care of them. And thankfully I had a great brand and company and leaders that allowed me to do that. And I think that's what leaders need to remember is it's not all about you.
Mm-hmm.
It is about them. It is about their family. It is about what they're trying to the legacy they're trying to leave. And the more you can help them leave, the off you're going to be as a company. And,
guaranteed.
It will help your performance in the long term.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So you decide to become a coach. Talk about the mindset and where the thought process that brought you to that point. Being a coach is a lot different than what you were doing, right?
Oh yeah.
Although you're sharing lessons and you brought a lot of wisdom from all the time that you were there and all the things that you learned. Talk about, because there are people listening to this that are thinking about becoming a coach. There are people listening to this that are thinking about doing something like what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that for a second.
You're right. It is very different. Right. And I joke about this all the time. I'm like, when I left, I had, like I said, a team of 200 people, resources, budgets, all the things that I needed to support a brand. Well, when you leave an organization like that, you are now on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And you are now building your own brand. You are building it without a big budget. You are building it without a lot of resources. So the first thing was, it was just such a change in what I had been used to. So I had to adapt to that. But I will tell you that right after I left, I had several job offers, all in corporate settings. And for me, it wasn't that I necessarily had a bad experience. I just didn't want to do that anymore.
Right.
I really I had seen a difference in, okay, there is one way to lead that I absolutely know gets results, while getting those results in a way that feels good to people. And then I'd seen leaders that did the opposite. They got the results, but they were kind of trampling on folks to get there. And I wanted leaders to know is like, that's a short-term strategy and you will get results short-term. But if you want to scale, if you want to grow, and if you want to build a sustainable brand, you have got to lead the other way. And if you lead this other way, and if you put a focus on relentless, intentional communication and connection, you're not just going to build short-term results. You're going to build these long-term results that are going to be able to sustain your business, your family business, your company for years to come. But don't get a legacy, right?
Yeah.
And a legacy that you're proud to lead. And if a leader is out there and they go, that's what I want, I don't want to just be a leader. I want to be the kind of leader that leaves a legacy that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
There's a way to do that. And so when I left, I really took a step back and said, I want to help other leaders see there's another way to do this. And so I've captured that now into a whole program that is a way to actually train CEOs to say, here's how you do it. Now build it this way. And it's literally constructing it. Construct this in your company so that you can create the culture that you want to create and leave the legacy that makes you proud. It can be by design, but if you don't take the time to design it, the culture is going to lead you. And I just think you're a lot better off. You can't get to a destination if you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
And building that out on the front end, and then actually, coming in and saying, okay, now let me show you how you bring that to life.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you how you sustain this, and let me show you how you connect people very intentionally and through a structure.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I teach now, because I've been there where I've been the person that hated structure and hated process. And then I put it in place and I went, oh my God, this makes such a difference in the way I lead. And so I've seen the difference, and I want other people to know you can have that great company, you can have that remarkable brand, but you've got to be willing to do it like the others aren't doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be your competitive advantage.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a jerk. In fact, don't be.
Mm-hmm.
Being a jerk, nobody likes a jerk. Who wants to
True.
work for them?
True.
Right?
And you're never going to get there by yourself.
No.
You're never going to get there by yourself. If you're a CEO, you're never going to get there by yourself. I think you're the CEO whisperer.
Well, you know what? That's a good name. I think I may have to take that.
I think that's you. I think that's you.
I really do. Here's the thing, and I know, and this is kind of maybe a taboo subject we're about to go down, but CEOs get a lot of hate, right? They're the bad guy. They're the person to be demonized. They're the ones who are, sticking it to the man, and all of these things, right? That people have this perception of. But here's what I see, and this is someone who's worked with CEOs and COOs my entire career. I see people who are a little insecure in some cases. I see people who truly do want to be admired, truly do want to do the right thing, truly want to be that leader that's inspiring people, but they have pressure from the top, their boards, the owners, whatever, that are pressuring them to do things in a way that maybe they don't feel good about, but they have to do it because they're on this clock, right? That's what I see. And so I don't have that hate for CEOs. I see them they're just people trying to do their job. And I think that as far as being a CEO whisperer, that has been a role that I've played, where I have been able, as a head of communication and culture and so on in the company, I've been able to be their sounding board and be that person that can say respectfully, because we have a trusting relationship, right? I can say to them, hey, I wouldn't do it that way. Yeah. I know you're down this path, and I know that sounds really good to the bottom line, but here's what this could do long term. So what if we did it this other way? What if we just shape things together? And so it's a collaborative process that ends up helping the CEO be a better leader. And nobody has to know that I did it.
Yeah.
Nobody has to know that I had that conversation. It doesn't matter. If I can shift it and help all the people, perfect.
Yeah.
It is not about anyone knowing that someone told the CEO not to do it that way, right?
You mind if I share something with you?
Sure.
I think a great question to ask them is, are you prepared for how this is going to be received?
Yeah. And I'll tell you a secret. A lot of times they don't know how it's going to be received until after it's done.
No.
And here's another thing I've seen. They're so excited about it because they've had so much time to process it and think about it. Yes, they've got these blinders on.
Yep.
And they are like, oh my God, everybody's going to love it. This is going to be great, because they can see A to Z and how it's all going to fit together and what it's going to do for the company. And meanwhile, they're not thinking about the marketing manager who's going to have to do this differently, and how's that going to change my job? What does that mean to me? They're not thinking about that. But that is the role of a communication person and or team. And that's what I think CEOs are missing. I think a lot of CEOs do not have that sounding board. They don't have that whisperer. They don't have that team that they can really go to and talk to. And when you don't have that, you get blinders.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of yes men all around you telling you how amazing you are, smart you are, great you are, and how much everybody's going to love this. And they're lying to you.
Mm-hmm.
They're full of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're only doing that because they know that if they just suck up to the boss, that keep their seat at the table.
Right.
But the person that you really need at that table is the person that doesn't care about sucking up. They care about making sure you're successful and your company is successful long term because you have the people on board. And if you don't have that person in your circle that you truly can have those conversations with, then you are at risk, to me, of not just losing your audience, as they say, your people, but you're at risk of losing your performance.
You're at
Because
risk of
once you
losing
lose
everything.
your people, once you lose your people, you lose your performance. And sometimes you lose your position, right? Because they go, this guy or gal cannot lead. So
Have you read Elon Musk's the biography of Elon Musk by what's his name? Howard. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. He wrote Steve Jobs. He wrote Steve Jobs' biography. Oh,
I
I'm
haven't
drawing a
read
blank.
that,
But
I actually love to read about Elon Musk, and
so it's Elon Musk's biography, and what he talks about in that book is he talks about a point where Tesla and SpaceX are going bankrupt. They're literally on the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
And the board has come to Elon and said, look, we need to replace you as the CEO. We're failing. We're going under, right? We need to bring in some emergency, crisis management, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Elon went back to him and he said, look, I started this company and I'm going to fix it, but I want you to pay me. And this is Tesla specific, right? But SpaceX was also in this quagmire too. And he ends up going to the Fremont assembly plant because that's where a lot of their problems were at the time. And he moves in for 3 months. He sleeps on the roof. He pitches a tent and sleeps on the roof. He sleeps underneath the conference room table. I'm not suggesting people do this, but here's what I am suggesting. He went down to the assembly line and he asked every single worker why every single part went in that car. And if they couldn't answer why, he wanted to know who it was that put it in there. And he wanted them to answer the question why. And if they couldn't answer the question in an acceptable fashion, they could be fired and the part didn't end up going in the car.
Right.
All of a sudden, because here's the thing, the lesson is the CEO himself is at the assembly line asking the workers that are bolting the car together. Okay. That's right. Where your expertise is. Mm-hmm. It's not in your C-suite, ladies and gentlemen. It's on the firing line.
Amen.
Okay. What's brilliant about this guy is he does the exact same thing with SpaceX. Okay. And they told him one time, they said, it's going to take us 6 months to do this thing that you want us to do. And he said, turn the plane around. They're on his plane. They turned the plane around and he had it handled in 2 days.
I think I heard this story.
Being 2 days,
yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
You with me? But that comes from, I need you to do this. Okay. This isn't a C-suite thing. This is, I need you to do this. How long is it going to take you to do it? And the engineers said, it'll take us 6 months. Engineers overcomplicate everything anyway. Right. But he literally said, turn the plane around. Let's go now. And they literally went that day, that hour, they went back to where that was and they got it figured out.
Yeah, I think it was like wasn't it like 4 weeks instead of 6 months?
Yeah.
They ended up fixing that problem so quickly.
Yeah, it was like,
but it's so interesting because Elon Musk is known for that, right? He is sleeping on the manufacturing floor. That's his kind of MO. And I think that's important too, because when you think about any company, any big company, it's if you focus too much on C-suite and leaders, you're missing the whole point.
Yeah, it's
You
a
ought
bubble.
to start at absolutely. You ought to be starting at the front counter. You need to know what they need, what they want, what they think, and always be getting their feedback. Always be getting the context around the decisions you're making. Because if you are just making those decisions at the top and you're not talking to that front counter, you're not talking to those people that are actually serving your customers, trust me, you're missing the entire point.
1,000%.
And so that's what I think Elon understands. He's all about understanding how it is put together.
Walter Isaacson. Walter Isaacson's his name.
Oh, is that who the author is?
That's the author.
To go check. I'm gonna have to go read that.
Yeah, it's
I've
a
heard
really
tons
good
of
book.
Stories.
It's a really good book.
But I haven't read a book, and
the
so
guy's just
I may
remarkable.
Yeah,
he's just remarkable. So
he is. But
anyway.
it's just frontline and connect and communicate. You just got to get more humble in your leadership so that you can better lead.
So let's say that we have leaders listening to this podcast and they've fallen in love with you just like I have, and they want to hire you. How do they go about doing that?
Fastest, easiest way is go to my website. It's pamnemec.com and just click book a call. That's the fastest, easiest way to get a hold of me.
NEMEC.
That's right.
NEMEC.
It's Pam Nemec, Pam, NEMEC.com. And if you go to my website, it'll have all the information on there, but it'll also have just a quick little, hey, set up a call with me. It's free. And I just like to chat to say, where are you at? What do you need? And how can I help?
Yeah.
And then there's all the other places, right? But let's just start there. That's probably the simplest way.
Awesome. And we're connected on LinkedIn. I saw just a little bit ago.
Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Great to be connected with you. Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up?
The only thing I'd like to cover is that I love what you're doing. I love that you're talking to people about their stories, because I think that there is magic in the stories. And I didn't get a chance to talk a lot about this, but I think that another thing that forget about is, if you really want to inspire people inside your company, tell stories.
Yeah.
If you really want people to understand what you want to see, what behaviors you want to see, what you most respect about other leaders and other people inside the organization, tell stories. Don't just talk about what you want, actually show them what you want, because when you do that, people can more easily emulate it. And Mike, you know that better than anybody because of this that you're telling here on this podcast, right? People connect to stories. They don't connect to numbers.
Yeah.
So I think it's an important aspect of communication. And that's something that a system like this actually helps you do.
Yeah, I totally agree. Pam Nemec, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been a blast.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.